we've had some very, very poisonous demonstrations here in London today, including Israeli flags being burnt by so-called Palestinian supporters. But the reality of the situation in Israel and in Gaza is that, and they've so far, since the last 3 or 4 days, they've fired over 2,000 rockets at the Israeli civilians. Most of them, I'm happy to say, have been taken down by the Israelis' Iron Dome missile defense system. Some have got through. Meanwhile, of course, the IDF have been striking back very, very hard and with precise strikes to take down the Hamas military infrastructure, doing their best, of course, to avoid killing innocent civilians. There have been many. That was quite a strategic move where they tricked Hamas into reacting a certain way, and they used the media to achieve that. Take us through that. It was an incredible operation. Such an extraordinary surprise attack triggered by deception, a very, very deliberate deception operation. And effectively what the Israelis did is that they massed tanks. It was then thought there was going to be an immediate invasion of Gaza. And of course, hundreds of Hamas terrorists then went into this, what's called a metro tunnel network, an underground tunnel network they've dug since 2014, which contains weapons, command and control facilities and shelter for the terrorists. They went down into there and immediately they were inside. The IDF then attacked those tunnels with 160 aircraft, which dropped JEFE de HAM. They then got hit as well from the air. So it was I think, as you said, a strategic victory, really, for Israel, which will probably prove to be a turning point in this conflict and really hit Hamas with an absolute body.
Some people who keep saying that the response from Israel is not proportionate. They make it sound like, there are a couple of blokes in their sheds having a few beers in Palestine, just, building some rocks and missiles in their backyard. Is that the reality? Who is actually backing Palestine to be able to attack Israel like this, and is the response proportionate?
Well, the first point I make is that Iranian proxy, and they are carrying out this action at the behest of Iran. They obviously want to do it themselves as well, but Iran is behind it, pulling the strings. And it is Iranian-supplied missiles, and with my own eyes, many times I've been in command posts, I've discussed with IDF commanders, I've observed on the ground the extreme care that the IDF take to target weapons, to target ammunition, and to target command posts, but not, if they can possibly avoid it, to hit civilians. Now, the way Hamas work, they have all of their main locations surrounded by civilians, or if they don't leave, then they've developed a low-powered munition that can be dropped onto the building to give a very loud warning, but doesn't destroy it, to people to get out. And only then, when they're confident that the majority of civilians have gone, will they, for example, several high-rise buildings totally destroyed by Israeli air power. And I think in all those high-rise buildings, I've not heard of a single civilian casualty being reported, which is an extraordinary accomplishment. Taken so much care and been so effective in preventing civilian casualties on the battlefield as the IDF. And I include in that the British Army, the Australian Army, all of whom take immense pains to avoid killing civilians. But the Israeli...
And now, 4 months into the Biden administration, and we've got a terrible conflict, the likes of which we haven't seen in many years.
Well, we haven't seen anything like this under the Trump administration. We saw some share of the responsibility for this attack happening. Of course, responsibility is with Hamas, with Palestinian Islamic Jihad, but America has a huge role to play. And if America shows any weakness, and America has abandoned one of the most important US allies in the region, Saudi Arabia, US has signaled its intention to unconditionally leave Afghanistan. Now, that's not connected, but of course, people see these signals and they react accordingly. And I think...
WGN's Rob Sneed has reaction. Jesus, God, I don't...
So I hope that we figure out something too.
Northside, Rob Sneed, WGN News. police on horseback and grabbed the boy as a toddler.
The Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and other office spaces and homes in Gaza on Saturday. The owner of the building and journalists here are pleading on the phone with an Israeli intelligence officer, military intelligence. The latest of many such attacks that Israeli forces say are a response to the thousands of Hamas rockets fired toward Israel in the last few days. Meanwhile, the civilian toll of the conflict and sending 40 tons of medical supplies, food and blankets to the West Bank and Gaza. Egypt is also sending ambulances into Gaza to try and bring Palestinians back to Egyptian hospitals. Palestinian medics say
several people have been forced to rush to bomb shelters, and the Iron Dome rocket defense system has been in action, almost continuously destroying incoming rockets in the air.
But the fact that Hamas, of course, doesn't do that at all, not with the civilians in Gaza and certainly not with the civilians here in Israel.
Okay. But Palestinians accuse Israel of not even sparing the dead, ma'am. They say that the Israeli can't even rest in peace.
I can't confirm that. I don't know that information. But again, I would really urge the question to go towards Hamas, which is why they are hiding weapons and for the political echelon here in Israel. The military is prepared for any potential scenario. Right now, our focus really maintains on those strikes, largely speaking from the air. But we will be ready for any instructions that...
Anoche, el primer ministro israelí.
אנחנו ממשיכים לפעול במלוא העוצמה. אנחנו מתחילים על מי שהצית את האש, חוטף אש. אבל בניגוד לחמאס, שמכוון...
Palestinas del barrio de Seir Harrat. Haniyek mantiene la amenaza de Hamas y avisa a Netanyahu de que está jugando.